Okay, this video is for veterans that have chronic sinusitis ratings that are at a 0 or 10%, and they're trying to figure out whether or not they qualify for 30%. This one's important to me. I feel like this one's easy to get if you have chronic sinusitis, but I feel like it's real easy to mess it up if you don't put together some sort of plan to get there, assuming that you have the right criteria to get to 30%. That's what we're going to talk about. Why does 30% matter on a chronic sinusitis? Like, why should you be shooting for it? Obviously, if you qualify for it, you should definitely do it. This one's pretty black and white on what you need to get it, like what the symptoms should show. But it might take you a little while to develop that evidence. And then, of course, 30%, as always, is considered a high value claim. And getting 30%, especially if you're at like 10% now, it can really boost your rating. But even if you're higher, a 30% increase on one claim could boost your overall VA rating and could really help you out compensation wise for your family and yourself. And plus, having sinusitis sucks. So you might as well get paid for it if you have the right symptoms. And I also believe that there's a lot of vets out there that qualify for it. But, they just, you're not going to the doctor for it, especially if you don't need antibiotics every single time. And you're certainly probably not putting it down in a journal to document your symptoms. So I can see how a lot of veterans can get lowballed on this one, even though they are suffering from all the right symptoms. So this one's important to just get the right evidence, take the time, and make sure it's right. So this is one you should definitely put your time into if you meet the criteria. So then the next thing we're going to jump into is just knowing the rating criteria. I put the where it's at there so you can Google it. I'll also put a link to it down in the description below so you can find it and read it for yourself. But in order to get that 30% rating, and remember, there's a 0, a 10, a 30, and then a 50% rating for sinusitis. I picked 30% because, like I said, I think that there's a lot of veterans out there that are probably underrated on this and can easily grab this with the right preparation. So in order to get that 30% rating, according to the 38 CFR, you need to have either 3 or more incapacitating episodes per year. So what are incapacitating? Those are those ones that are like putting you out for the count. You're just, your face pain is so bad that, you're having to call, the doctor and just taking some sick leave from work and staying at home. So those are your incapacitating episodes. So 3 or more a year. But if yours is not that bad, and you're able to kind of deal with them with antibiotics and treatment, then you can go for more than 6 or more non-incapacitating episodes per year with antibiotics treatments. And those are obviously, going to take you some time, 4 to 6 weeks. But, some of those symptoms, and if you have chronic sinusitis, I think you know what those symptoms are. But, the headache, the swollen, areas inside your face over by the nasal passages, the mucus, the postnasal drip, the constant clearing of your throat, the discharge, just all the mucus, the crusting, all of those things that make up chronic sinusitis. So, knowing that and being able to document that is really what you need for that 30% criteria. So, once, and you could probably look at those requirements and determine right now whether or not you meet that. But the hard part is making sure that you have all that evidence to prove that you deserve that. And, if you are like me, you probably would put in for chronic sinusitis or any condition for that matter, and, not have all the right evidence to go into that fight to get the rating that you want. So, if you are in this position and you don't have that, or maybe you do, here's some of my ideas on what you need to show or prove to the VA. Number one, with any condition, you want to be able to articulate to the VA whatever the criteria is that you're trying to meet or that you feel like you should be at. So in this case, you want to be able to clearly show to them the number of episodes that you have per year, whether they're incapacitating or non-incapacitating. You want to make sure that you know what you're, how many you have. And you want to be able to show that, and we'll talk here in a few minutes on the next slide, how to do that. But you want to be able to make sure that you can prove to them that you have X amount of number of episodes per year. You also want to be able to show them, what type of medication you're on or how many times you're taking the medication. You want to show them ENT records. And you want to be able to make sure that they can see all of these things by highlighting them. And that's what I do. And whenever I'm submitting a VA claim, I highlight my records, so that they can see it clearly. I don't know if they, if it's easy for them to find it or not, but I want to make it as easy as possible. So I want to make sure that they see it. So I'm highlighting it. You want to make sure that you're keeping a log whenever you're having these episodes. I like to use just the notes function on my phone, but you can do it however you want. You can buy yourself a journal and document your symptoms that way. But this is something that you're going to want to keep throughout the year to show your your symptoms and how often you're having these episodes. CAT scans, X-rays, whatever imaging you have, those are helpful as well. You may call out sick from work. So maybe, get the paperwork that you used in your, however you guys documented in your jobs to show that you called out from sick. I think that's crucial evidence. You could get a note from your boss if you need to, whatever it is that you need to show that, this is impacting your work life. It's impacting you on making money. You're having to use your sick time to take off time from work for this condition. You can also get a statement written from your spouse or anyone else that, has witnessed the suffering that you're going through whenever you have these episodes. That's always going to be helpful as well. And then, of course, with any condition, doing a personal statement is always a great idea. And I think that in the circumstances of putting in for a sinusitis claim, my personal statement would say something like, I'm currently service connected for this condition and I'm seeking an increase. And then I would lay out, what I'm dealing with. I would lay out how many episodes I'm dealing with and whether or not they're incapacitating or not. I would explain to them how often I'm taking medication. I would maybe even reference the doctor's notes or whatever it is that you have to prove it, so that when the rater looks at it, it's easy for them to figure out what you're trying to state. Explain your story, explain it so they can clearly see it, and make sure everything is tied in with all your medical records so that there's no misunderstanding. It's all very clear to them. If you're not already service connected, I think this video I'm trying to get folks that are, because I want them to get that increase. But if you're not already service connected for this and you're putting in a claim, then obviously be prepared to explain how it's connected to service, maybe through a secondary condition or maybe it's a presumptive from the PACT Act, whatever it is. This is a very common one for a lot of different veterans that are where the PACT Act applies to them. This is a presumptive condition, so certainly an easy one to win if you were in those you served during those period of times in those locations. And then of course you want to have any records or any evidence that you have to support this. Now, when you go to your, that's putting together your claim and submitting it to the VA for them to review. That's all the evidence that we're looking at, or at least, it's not an all-inclusive list, but it's everything that I could think of that you should bring to, or that you should have submitted with your disability claim for sinusitis. But then, of course, once you submit that claim, you're gonna have to go to a CMP exam, and and with any CMP exam, it's a super important time because you don't typically have a lot of time to spend with the examiner, and they're not going to know anything about you other than what they've read. So you want to make sure that you're prepared to go in there, to be detailed about everything. You want to make sure you're truthful. You don't want to minimize anything. You want to make sure that you're giving them the details of your condition, and how it impacts your life and the symptoms that you're dealing with. But in order to do that, you need to make sure that you know your symptoms. And if you may not be dealing with sinusitis at the time, so it may be a little bit difficult for you to actually explain how much it really impacts you, and how much it sucks. And that's why I think it's important to write notes down, to prepare yourself, so that so that you're not doing what we do a lot as veterans and just minimizing everything and saying, well, it sucks, but it's not that bad. No, explain to them exactly how bad it is. Explain to them what your symptoms are. Give them the numbers of times or episodes that you suffered from chronic sinusitis throughout the year, and show them the numbers and show them how you tracked it. And that way it's easy for them to take that information and write it down, and make sure that you're accurately rated. But if you say, maybe 2 or 3 times or 4 or 5 times, I don't think that's the best way to do this one, because especially if you're tracking it. If you're tracking it, why not show them where you tracked it? I think that provides a little more credibility to what you're trying to say, and it's accurate, and it gives them a fuller understanding of what your symptoms are, and I think that's a good idea to be prepared to do that during your CMP exam. I've had a few instances going to CMP exams where I didn't bring my medical records, and they didn't have them for whatever reason. I don't know if their computers maybe didn't work, or maybe it wasn't sent over to them from the VA, or maybe they just didn't want to look at them. And that can completely waste a lot of your time. So my suggestion is just bring the relevant records with you. Anything that is considered significant evidence in your claim. And that way, if they don't have them, you can show them those things and they can make copies. Or maybe, they can quickly see what you're talking about by looking at your records that are already highlighted, and then they can find it in their copy of records, and use that as to reference when they're writing up your DBQ or whatever it is that they're going to document your case on. Just again, make sure that you articulate your symptoms, and make sure they understand how it is truly impacting you, so that they can accurately document everything on the paperwork that they're using, that they're going to submit to the VA. And I think that's going to help you get the 30%, assuming that you meet all the criteria. And like I said, this one's black and white, so it really shouldn't be that difficult. If you know that you have that many number of episodes per year, and you meet the criteria, just make sure that you're not submitting that claim until you have proof of all that. You have all the right evidence.